Two young men died, one at Gwinnett County Jail, one at the Fulton County Jail. Both jails have private medical providers doing their medical care for the jail. And in both cases, that investigation stuff happened, but we got all of the file. The jails did their investigation, the GBI did their investigation, so we were able to see what the possibilities, what happened, where was the breakdown in the process. I evaluated it from the perspective of the deputies and the jailers. Is there something there? I'm not a med-mal lawyer. James looking at the medical part of it. What I saw, I felt like we could have made some colorable claims against some of the individual jailers for, cell checks and different things like that. Not maybe taking these folks down to medical. But ultimately, we decided to just forego all of that. And in both cases, the private medical, and when I say the private medical provider, I mean a handful of nurses, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 of the staff, right? I believe that is a way for all of these medical cases where you have private entities that are providing the medical care. I don't see why you would ever do, again, this is what I was talking about earlier, the deliberate indifference or 1983. These cases were filed in state court. They were just med-mal cases, but also cases, and maybe don't tell me if but also cases where there's a contract that the medical providers have to do certain things that they did not do. So that's Jane's case. That is
Our case.
well, that's our case, right?
Okay, so I'm Jane, and Devin, you said something really interesting in the beginning. Is to stay aware of the humanity. And what I'm Italian. I got to stand and I got to use my hands. What I'm about to show you is a clip from a case, no names, of the parents describing what happened to their son. And this was used during our settlement.
He was always energetic, full of love, and wanted to be around family.
He was fun and energetic. He just had so much energy.
I heard it in his voice. I was like, son, you got a cold? He was like, yeah, they got mold and mildew in here. He had a headache and he had chest pains, is what he was telling me. It was hard for him to breathe. I asked him to go to the infirmary to see what they can do. He said, I went, but they only gave me a heating pad and pain pills. And I was asking him, was it something that feel like it was helping? He was like, no, it's not doing anything. I don't feel nothing that's to where it's helping. I said, did you tell them to take you to grading? He said, yes, I did. I requested so many times. And I asked her to get my son to the hospital because he's been complaining for like 2 weeks now. They didn't say yay or nay. They were just like, well, we'll look into it. Nothing was happening. They didn't hear me or my son. They totally ignored us.
At this point, incarcerated, I'm hearing that he's having issues breathing. Okay, so, and within seeking treatment, his mother reached out and said that it wasn't being handled professionally or the correct way that's supposed to be done.
Advancing correctional health care because we put a very specific focus on positive outcomes.
They called me on my phone and told me over the phone, and that's when they told me my son was deceased.
Come on!
Y'all mean to tell me my son dead, and we been telling y'all that he's been sick. He's been complaining about being sick, headache, chest pains, and y'all did nothing.
Turning 18 years old, and I told him we got nothing but time. We're gonna make things right. I think that was truly the last thing I said to my son.
I kindly ask that you join the class of 2019 in taking a moment of silence for two scholars, Terrell King and who are no longer with us. The class of 2019 has draped chairs in their honor.
His graduation, they honored him with a chair. And the painful part about it was my other son walked for I created him, I brought him here, man. Like, that was a piece of me that it didn't even get to flourish. You know, it didn't get to go through the good and bad days of life and get to learn. He had his whole entire life to live. And he didn't get to live any of it.
There's nothing in the world I wouldn't do to get him back.
Remember the humanity, it is there. They classified this death as unpreventable, sudden. He died of something called an aortic dissection, where the lining in your aorta separates and it bursts open. Usually, the actual bursting is sudden, but the chest pain is the precursor. Anywhere this gentleman went, a primary care, a doc in the box, Grady, he complains of chest pain. He's to the ER. They do an ultrasound of his abdomen, and he is saved. Instead, this gentleman complained for weeks with chest pain, and they didn't do anything. So, what makes I'm going to shorten this up. What makes prison healthcare different? The biggest thing is the access to care. Okay. The biggest thing is the access to care. When you're looking at your cases, you've got to know how they're getting the access and from whom to figure out who's responsible. Secondly, which is great, there's national standards that I've got doctors, nurses, everybody admitted. It defines a standard of care, and they're also in their contracts. So you have a third-party beneficiary breach of contract claim as well as a medical malpractice claim, because they're going to try to say, oh, standards, that's discretionary. But contracts aren't. When your job description says do this, you got to do it. When you sign it, do this, you got to do that. And if you don't do that, you breach a contract, and the prisoner is the direct third-party beneficiary from that contract, so you can recover both ways. And I may not get to the last one, but I want to show you, because this is what I had to learn when I first took the prison case, how access works. So first of all, there's pill call, okay? Nurses come up, and there's a section in the prison where she has a cart. Now look, the only way they even get a freaking aspirin is this officer, nurse comes up, gives him the, this officer has to come and bring him here, and that's how he gets his pill. And if he has a complaint, they usually have a kiosk to file the complaint. How does he get there? He's got to have enough heart to listen to this person, to let him to go to sick call and file the complaint. And you would think, let's go to the next one. Also, that's one way. Then each floor, each prison floor and the big ones have their own provider exam room, okay? So if you have an appointment with a doctor, which by the way, they do not tell the inmates ahead of time if they have an appointment, okay? They do not, nor are they required to. Say, we're gonna follow up, and they don't tell them when. If they have an exam with a doctor, how do they get there? Well, the doctor tells them who she wants to see. She's got to get the officer. The officer has to go up on the floor, bring him down, wait, and that's how they get there. Okay, so access to care is very important. Last one. And then there's the medical floor. If you have something urgent, infirmary, again, prisoner's office gets them down there to wait, and that's how they get the access to care. And you would think, let's go to the next slide. Oh, these are the standards, okay? If you're gonna do prisoner or jail medical malpractice case, buy these, okay? They will tell you that as a matter of law, these prisons have to have policies and protocols, and then the policies and protocols, they're required to follow by contract and by the standard of care, and that's how you get your hook and your negligence. go. Next one. This is one thing I want you to understand. I know we're out of time. This is going to be my last slide. You've got to understand the relationship between the private corporation, the medical providers, and the county prison, because each relationship has a standard of care and a contract that you can seek out liability. So, Fulton County, $20 million a year. They pay a private corporation. And you mean to tell me a guy who's complaining of chest pain over weeks when they're getting $20 million, you can't get him into Brady? Which, by the way, Brady provides a service for free to the Fulton County Jail. So it doesn't even cost them anything. Okay? So what you look for, number one, with the corporation is what they contracted to do. They're supposed to have so much staff, a medical director, so many doctors, whatever. And when you get the schedules, 9 times out of 10, they breach their contract to the county and didn't have enough staff members. So you can go after them directly to breach a contract. And let me tell you folks, they may have a $5 million insurance policy, but these corporations are so wealthy, there are verdicts high and above that, and they settle above their insurance limits. But you gotta take them to task, okay? You gotta be able to try the cases, know where the mistakes lie, and you can find them. Another thing I want you to make sure you understand is the relationship between the system of the correctional care, the healthcare corporation, and the physicians, nurses. So basically, they contract to provide the entire system, okay, computers, everything. But they need people. So they use physicians, nurses, practitioners, and they have contracts with them. Now, they are, as citizens in Georgia, there's a medical malpractice claim that they must. Did you have a question, Mark?
I'm thinking out loud as you're
Okay,
speaking.
good.
Go ahead.
They have to provide care within the standard of care. That's what a reasonable physician would do, generally under the same or similar circumstances. Well, in addition to that, they have a job description and a contract that says they are supposed to follow the policies and procedures that the correctional health care has, that really the correctional health care adopted it from those standards. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
My name is James Woodall.
Hey, James.
Quick question. So, a lot of times people who are incarcerated, whether they're at the county jail or the state correctional facilities, are having issues with actually receiving care. And so I understand some of you all mentioned like having actual injuries that if you were to take them to the hospital, you could evaluate whether or not there's damages for the purposes of a lawsuit. If we do not have those kinds of injuries, is there, I guess, a legal strategy or a legal mechanism in which we could possibly challenge some of these practices? Because, yeah, they may not have injuries in which would grant us millions of dollars in damages, but there are human lives ultimately at stake, and there are people that we love, that we care about, that are experiencing these things. And so if they come to us and say, and Devin, you've seen that at Southern Center, folks will be like, hey, can you come help me? And if we're just simply saying, well, you don't have any injury, I can't. I mean, is there a strategy? I mean, I know MedMal is one, other, 1983 is another, but.
I mean, and that's the yin and the yang of the private practice, is that your cases have to be profitable in order for you to help others. The only thing that I could think about is class action, potential class action, especially if you have someone like some private healthcare facility constantly not providing the medical staff so they can meet their contractual obligations. You could get a group of them together. Go ahead.
No, that's right. So within CCJI, we have a volunteer lawyer who is from the Center for Constitutional Rights, CCR, who I think just argued an impact case in federal district court relating, I don't know what the specific issue was, but in the Southern Center, I thought that did it sometimes as well. But ACLU, Southern Center, CCR, there are organizations that file for injunctions and for what we refer to as sort of impact litigation. Not about money damages, but stop doing this or sort of require them to do that.
One thing that's not legal that we've had success with in Chicago, state-run prisons, we go to the state representative that's on the finance committee that delineates money for the prison, for these contracts, and we complain to them directly with their constituents like, hey, this individual is not getting medical care. They have a direct line to the director of prisons, to the head of their health care, and they make calls and they get things done, thinking outside the box of like litigation and lawyers. So
But I know we're short on time, so the two things I want you to take from my presentation is number one, when you're looking for the case, learn the access of care and how they were supposed to get their care and who was responsible. And then the second, get those NHCC standards. All the jails and prisons are required to be certified by them. The private company adopts them as policies and procedures, and then they contract with the healthcare providers that they have to follow those policies and procedures. So if they have a chest pain protocol that says severe chest pain, 10 out of 10, you have to go to the emergency room, guess what? If you don't do it, it's a violation of standard of care. It's a violation of the protocol, which is a violation of the standard of care and also a breach of contract. End of story.